look like I fixed that without Mr. Flint, but seeing him run down here inspired me to get the computer set up the right way. Okay, day 2, thanks for having me back. Yesterday was a sort of history presentation about the history of the Panhellenic Games with a special emphasis on the Olympics. Today is going to be more of a philosophical endeavor. And to me, this is the more interesting of the two presentations, and you'll be happy to know it's also the shorter of the two presentations. Okay. Competition has long been held as a sacred virtue in America. We are often told that the spirit of competition is what makes America great. We're encouraged to compete in all areas of life: economics, academics, athletics, politics, and war. But is competition always the best thing for healthy individuals, families, communities, and our nation? And for that matter, what exactly is competition? Are there different types, and are some types better than others? Now, what I just read comes from the first part of my course description for my senior elective next year. And today I'm going to focus specifically on the last couple lines I read about what is competition, are there different kinds, are some kinds better than others? I first was introduced to the idea that there's different kinds of competition when I was taking a sports philosophy class at Tulane my senior year. And our teacher, who's also the sports psychologist for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, or I guess they're now just the Rays, which is pretty cool, spent a lot of the semester talking about this ancient Greek version of competition that he stressed to us. And it was something that really profoundly affected me and changed the way I thought about competition, and sort of indirectly led me to Gilman. When I read the book Season of Life, I sort of found what I thought was a program that taught this ancient Greek notion of competition. So when I went to Greece this summer, I was hoping to find evidence and illustrations of my own notions about Greek competition, but what I found instead, and not just visiting there, but reading a couple of really good books about the ancient Greeks and the ancient Olympics, I found that most of the supporting evidence actually debunks my notions and Dr. Lance Green's notions about Greek competition, and that a lot of what they believed is sort of contrary to what I hoped they believed. It turns out that we all romanticize the ancient Greeks. Modern scholars do it. Even the Macedonians and the Romans that conquered Greece idealized ancient Greece. So that's something that's been going on throughout history. We often give them maybe a little too much credit, more than they deserve. So today's assembly is really designed to look at what their notions of competition actually were, and decide what we can take away from their notions of competitions that might make our lives better and our community better. So a lot of what I teach about competition, I have these talks with my teams and also my classes sometimes, comes with these sort of etymological tricks that one can play with the certain Greek words and English words that are derived from Greek. So competition comes from the Greek word competire, and for you Latin and Greek scholars in here, com or cum, sometimes it's spelled with a U, means the same thing, means together or with, right? Words like community, communicate, all have this idea of it takes two working together to achieve it. And then patira means to search for. So I like to tell my athletes that true competition means to search for excellence together, so that competition is not this adversarial thing. Rather, everybody involved is working together to achieve something better. Agon is a really important word to the ancient Greeks, and it's going to be an important word today, and that simply meant a contest. Okay? But what's interesting is our modern word for agony comes directly from this root. And so there's this implicit idea that any contest involves agony, involves struggle, involves pushing yourself, no pain, no gain sort of thing. Several words here related to athletes and athletics. An athlon was also a name for a contest. There was a verb, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, athlueo, something like that, I don't know. And it meant to take part in a contest, but it also meant to suffer. So again, there was this idea that when you were in a contest, you were suffering. And then the word athlos meant prize. So when you put all those together, when we think of modern athletics, or where that word is derived from, there's this idea of suffering, but suffering for a prize at the end. My favorite Greek word or concept is arete. It's a word whose meaning evolved over the centuries that it was used in ancient Greece. It originally sort of meant just virtue, but it later came to mean excellence. Homer in the Odyssey used it to describe bravery most of the time, but also a person who uses all of his or her talents to achieve excellence in a given task. Plato used the word to mean superior talent or ability, and Aristotle in his Nicomachean Ethics used it to describe a person that fulfills his intended purpose to the utmost. Nietzsche described the zeitgeist, you 10th graders in here like that word, I know, the zeitgeist of ancient Greece as agonistic. Agonistic is an adjective used to describe an eagerness to win, someone who is constantly striving to overcome. Greek philosophers extolled competition often. They talked about how there were benefits for both individuals and society when everyone tried to compete with each other and outdo each other. It sort of helped society to move forward. So they encouraged everyone to compete in everything they did. There was a poet named Hesiod who wrote a famous didactic poem called Works and Days, and in it he spoke extensively about good strife and bad strife. He believed that these were the two main things that controlled human life. Bad strife leads to murder, war, bloodshed, etc. Good strife, on the other hand, pushes people to do their best. He believed that all great things came from rivalry and competition. So George Orwell once said that serious sport was war minus the shooting. The Greeks would have agreed. In most of the city-states there was compulsory military service because they went to war with each other quite often. And so athletics were seen primarily as a way to prepare for war and to stay ready for war. So to go to the gym was a civic duty. It was your job to stay in shape because you never knew when you would be called upon. They also saw it as a cathartic experience. They believed that we all possess these natural urges for violence and combat, and that athletics was a way to control and contain that violence. Another big thing that the Greeks were all about, especially the three most famous Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they really believed strongly in this harmony between mind, body, and spirit, and it was an important part of their education. A lot of learning happened at the gymnasium. Every city needed a gymnasium. They were places, obviously, to stay fit and practice athletics, but they were also a place where a lot of learning happened. Socrates did the majority of his teaching around the gymnasia and wrestling schools in Athens. That's where he hung out to have these discussions and to teach. In Plato's Republic, all citizens of the ideal city would attend the gymnasium to keep themselves generally alert, free from ill health, and ready for eventual war or hardship. Hard physical exercise was coupled with inspiring music as complementary factors in his definition of a well-balanced, finely tuned, and philosophical education. A couple more etymological treats for you guys. Plato's school in Athens was located in a house that was in the garden of the Academy Gymnasium, which was named for an obscure, Bronze Age hero named Academos. So when we think of academy in a school, that word actually comes from the name of a gym in Athens. The same goes for Aristotle. His school was inside of a gym, and that gym was called the Lyceum. And in France, lycée, spelled the L-Y-C-E-E, is the name for secondary school. The last thing, and this is sort of interesting and almost off-putting, but these philosophers believed in the beautiful body. The athletic body is the beautiful body, and they were all about the beautiful body because they thought it revealed inner beauty, that your physical appearance revealed moral virtue. The Greeks were all about winning. to a huge degree. There were no silver medals, no bronze medals awarded at the Olympics or any other Greek games. The only thing that mattered was the winner. Losing was seen as a disgrace, and there are lots of stories at Olympics of athletes being attacked by the crowds for particularly poor performances. Winning isn't everything. It's the only thing. We all attribute this. You've all heard it. We attribute it to Vince Lombardi, even though it's not clear that he ever actually said that. But it is clear that throughout antiquity, what mattered in athletic contests was always the winning and not the taking part. So, we all idealize Greek culture and hold it up to be emulated. But in my opinion, they got a lot of things wrong. There were some really big ones, right? If you don't know what pederasty is, you can look it up. But in terms of competition, there was also some things that I think they got wrong. First of all, their standards for excellence were always comparison-based. Your excellence wasn't based on comparing your performance versus what maybe is your full potential and seeing how you stack up against yourself. Instead, it was always based on how you compared against others. They, in my opinion, placed too much importance on winning and not enough on effort. They had this incredible, insatiable lust for fame and glory that was sort of the only reason you did anything in ancient Greece. And again, that idea of beautiful goodness, the irony is that Socrates was a really terrible looking human being. Even he admitted that, but he believed that there was something to the fact that if you looked good on the outside, you probably were good on the inside, which I think we can all see that's problematic. But there were a lot of things that I think they got right. Boy, the food over there is phenomenal. When I was there this summer, it was not something I was prepared for. You go to Italy or France, people talk about the food. The food in Greece is second to none. The islands there are also just mind-blowingly beautiful. My favorite sort of concept from the Greeks is arte, and they held it as the highest virtue, to do your best in everything you do. I also really liked how they appreciated and embraced and even celebrated the struggle that went into competition. If you won an Olympic event and you were from a wealthy family, they would commission a poem to be written in your honor. And the first part of the poem always emphasized the hardships that you had to overcome. So the greater the struggle, the greater your victory was. And again, I like how they emphasize this harmony of mind, body, and spirit, and the ideal education kept all three of these things in balance. So what are some of the ideals that maybe we can strive for as a community? I like this idea of embracing the struggle, of sort of learning how to enjoy working hard. I think if you can do that, it's going to make your life a lot more bearable. I would suggest practicing good strife. So, good strife, bad strife would be things like cheating, or, I don't know, hitting one of your classmates with a car or something because you want to overtake him in class rank, something like that. Good strife, don't do that. Good strife, on the other hand, is, trying your best to do your best, always striving to do better. I would encourage you to try to achieve harmony in mind, body, and spirit. And most of all, to pursue arte, to try to be excellent in everything that you do. Don't limit yourself to just being good at one thing, defining yourself as just an athlete, or just a student, or just an artist, right? You should try to be your best in all of those things. That was a huge emphasis in ancient Greek culture, right? Just being good at one thing does not mean that you possess arte. You have to be good at everything to possess the highest of Greek virtues. And always strive for ideals. These things are obviously ideals. It always doesn't work out perfectly in the real world, but I think it's important to strive for ideals. And my last slide here is what is ideal competition as you think about this in the classroom or on the athletic field. In my belief, ideal competition pushes the competitor to achieve his highest potential. Your goal is not necessarily winning, but it's to be the very best that you can be. It measures success in effort, right? You can't always measure success by outcome because there's a lot of things that can happen that are outside of your control. A bad call, a lucky bounce may cost you a game, but effort is something that you always can control. So to me, it's the most valid measure of success. Ideal competition values the struggle. Ideal competition causes opponents to respect each other because you realize that you're mutually necessary to reach excellence. Without a good opponent, you can't be your best and vice versa. So there's this real respect and even love for your opponent. It's all about relationships. Again, that has to do with your relationship with your opponents, but also with your teammates. Ideal competition builds cooperation and community. It's not radical self-interest where everybody's against everybody and it's this zero-sum game. Ideal competition brings people together. And it demands commitment to a larger cause. You're competing to be a part of something bigger, to do something greater than just you. So the idea I'll leave you with here is that, and I tell this to my teams every time before we practice and go out on the court, is when you go out there, whether it's in class, whether it's on the athletic field, whether it's in the arts, whatever you're doing, always have fun, work your hardest, and take care of each other. So that's what I've got for you today. Thank you.